So what current trends do you see shaping the solar industry? Let's talk about more from how the method of selling, consumer awareness, and just marketing solar. How's that process improved in the last few months, few years, especially after COVID?
Yeah, I think it is an ongoing change, Siddharth, right? If I go back 17 years ago on the residential side, I had a decision, and I decided that in the U.S. it would look much more like HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning in the U.S. There are thousands of HVAC dealers all across the United States, and they sell projects, they install projects, they buy equipment. That's the way I thought this was going to develop on the residential side. Then we got into this place where we ended up with national companies.
Mm.
This love affair with going nationwide. And we could go through a list. Everybody that's listening to this has seen the most recent falls, right? Of being able to run a nationwide install network. In the process, what we ended up with on the residential was we ended up with the sales controlled the entire flow of volume into the solar space, right? We had door to door guys, we had over the phone, all of this marketing efforts. And in that development, we ended up with EPCs, with the installers taking all of the liability, making the least amount of money, trying to keep their businesses afloat. And so that's what everyone watching this has seen the fall over the last 5 years of these companies. So while we've had some good adoption of solar because of the go-to-market strategies, it has been incredibly costly inside of, and again, I'm speaking just of residential. It has been incredibly costly for the industry because these big players have fallen off. So the um, the move away from nationwide, I think, has already begun. Um, we've got what I call super regionals that have been successful, but pulling a nationwide piece together, um, that has been the piece that no one has figured out. So that's been the one. Right now in the US, commercial and industrial C&I space has become very strong. Utility continues to be strong as well. All three of them are completely different channels, the way they go to market. Um, and I won't even begin to predict what the outcome will be because, I've lived through so many changes in what I thought, then something else came, then I think maybe my original thought was closer. So we'll wait and see as things develop.
Mm. I think so. From a sort of digital side, I remember maybe 17 years ago, there was no Salesforce. And uh, in digitization, we were probably, again, just using Excel on for managing leads, doing the calculations, as you said, and using Word to create proposals, documents, AutoCAD for designing, and just having those physical checklists maybe. And then transitioning now to like a mobile and digital era. That's been great and fun to watch.
Yeah, and to that point, right? If you look back, if somebody wanted to sell solar 17 years ago, they actually had to come take at SunPower. We had a 5 day class. I mean, we blocked people's time for a week. We had 2 days that we trained salespeople on just how to size a system. They had to know how many modules could go on one string to fire an inverter properly. They then they knew if they had different planes. It was a much more complicated process because there was no digital tool at the time, right? It was just the knowledge of the salesperson. Then in 2007, I believe, Enphase comes to market.
Hmm.
Enphase changed the way that solar could be sold because then it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter whatever Siddharth sold, I could put on the roof and could configure the Enphase correctly and make the system work properly. So I think, in terms of technological advancements, that changed. Now somebody gets into your software, they can go to a home, they can design a system that it it's perfect, right? They know which planes the homeowner wants. They know which planes the business owner wants. Could be a flat roof, maybe not. It's much easier today to go out and sell a system because your knowledge on the sales side really is about how much energy you're consuming, how much energy you're going to offset. And all of that now is answered within software.
Yeah. And just seeing uh, string inverters and central inverters in utility, but string inverters to, I think, optimizer led by SolarEdge and now microinverters. That's been a great journey, but I see installers still, like different installers still using different tools, right? And with storage more recently, the picture has only gotten exciting and more complicated and more expensive because, you used to just need a module, inverter, racking, the rest of the stuff. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Now you might need a hybrid inverter with a storage system in one location. You might need just micros in another. You might need to do a string because the industry has just gotten, there are different solutions that are better suited to each kind of design, right? Because uh, we're not just selling something which is just like a standard off the rack product. It's a very customized solution for every home or factory or um, utility park. So we need to be much more accurate and use the right um, inventory.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a great point because what took us so long to figure out inside of solar, right? How do we equip salespeople to go out and sell it and help that homeowner save money? Now that we've added storage, and it's been developing, we've seen other markets require storage. They want you to whatever you make, they want you to consume, but it changes the sales process for sure because as you pointed out, right, every single project now is more complicated. And so it's harder for the salespeople that took the residential space and grew it so rapidly. They are ill equipped, and the tools are trying to figure out how do they model how do we create a tool that a salesperson can use to model savings without the salesperson knowing what they're doing? And that is way different for sure, right? That salesperson has to become an expert at that house, that business, what their energy consumption is. Are they trying to take off the demand charges? Are they right? It's just way more complicated. And the utilities are adjusting. NEM 3 is a perfect example, right? NEM 3 was designed to protect the utility and still allow a homeowner some incentive, right? Some way to save money in the process of going solar. So, yeah, it's way more complicated than it was 5 years ago, for sure. But that's also where the tools, the digitalization, the software becomes so crucial for the salesperson.
Yeah. Absolutely. I remember the day when we used to just put modules, select the inverter, just put in like some basic electricity bill data, and
Yep.
you have a proposal. Right now, we need to get into pre-solar, post-solar tariff, and you might go to a different rate. The input data of the bill, right? Green button data, which actually has data for 15 to 1 hour intervals. We actually need that to model storage accurately because the software or the analysis needs to look at what the power of energy is at different times of the hour. It needs to look at what the consumption pattern is and then try to optimize when the storage should charge, when it should disperse into the house. Maybe it also goes back into the grid. So, lots of these local optimizations, which software just needs data for. It's uh, it's been a little challenging also because I've seen people who used to just design the normal, sort of cookie cutter solar PV solutions very easily, are now struggling a little because there's just so much more data. It's also hard to get green button data or other data, understand it, and then put it in the system. All the utilities have their own, you download a different M file every time. So,
Yes.
so,
Yep.
th- so there are solutions like utility API um, coming in on the market. So yeah, it's just so many more things now to learn, but that's progress, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
just be
It's it's part of the required learning, right? Because then once you understand it, let's take a business, right? How much power do they want in their storage? How many hours of storage, but more importantly, how much power do they need to go back into the business at one time? Because you can put 100 megawatt hours of storage on the building, and if you don't figure out how to size the proper inverter, you won't get the power out of the batteries to go back to fulfill the requirements that that business owner needs or the homeowner needs, right? You can put 30 kilowatt hours on a home,
yep,
and if they're running a small inverter, all they're going to be able to do is power four circuits that keeps their refrigerator, their internet, and some outlets going for 30 hours, right? For 30 kilowatt hours worth of power. It'll run for a long time, but they will not be able to run their house. And so that's the complicated thing for the for the salespeople. Sorry, for the salespeople, because they only think about selling kilowatt hours. They don't actually think about what the homeowner is trying to run and for how long that will run. There have been some tools that try to manage that, that try to predict that, but that's the complicated piece. That as I said earlier, the salespeople that have thrown the residential trajectory so high were never equipped to be able to have these super financially focused, energy consumption focused conversations. And so now we're trying to make this software align as much as possible. But as you've said, it's still a very, very complicated conversation with each business owner, homeowner, utility, what it is they're trying to accomplish.